we'll talk with Michelle Wu about her experiences as a Boston City Councilor. Joining me, one of my favorite guests. I met her more than a year ago when she first announced for the Boston City Councilor, and wouldn't you know it, she got elected, finishing at or near the top. She no sooner than took the oath of office, so then she found, found out a lot about politics and the Boston City Council. She is, of course, Michelle Wu, and now an at-large Boston City Councilor. And here tonight, nice to have you join us. Thanks
Great
so
to
much
be
for
back.
coming in. Well, let's start with that because, of course, when you made the announcement, and of course, anybody that follows Boston City Council politics, I'm talking about there's only 13 votes, and it becomes, and everybody wants to be the president, the chair of the board, so to speak. But this became a little more contentious than I think anyone thought. And did you realize that when going in, and I'm not suggesting you're naive in any way, you can't go through a campaign for office without learning that, but were you kind of surprised at the backlash?
No, but you're right that it happened very, very early on in my tenure, and in fact, even before I took the oath of office, right. The news really started to develop in mid-December that I had pledged my support to Councilor Bill Linehan for the council presidency. At that time, there were 3 councilors who were interested in the position, and after some back and forth and a lot of long conversations with my colleagues about the position, what it entailed, and what people wanted to see in a president of the city council, I did pledge my support to Councilor Linehan, my district councilor, and it was, as you say, a big lesson in politics to see the media that resulted. And I have always said that I wanted to be a person who would make decisions diligently and deliberately. And a lot of time went into that decision. And once I made it, and once I gave my word to Councilor Linehan and to others that this was my decision, I had to stick with it, and that I did through many media articles.
You get my profile and courage for, of course it's not a real award, but just because I talked to so many candidates and politicians, public officials, and most of them are forthright. Most of them aren't quite so forthright, and lots of times change their mind, or you're not quite sure where they're coming from. So I give you big points for this. But why do you think there was such a backlash about it? Because there's no, when it comes to Boston municipal government, of course, there's no parties per se. It's not like you're a member of one party or the other or anything like that. I know you fancy yourself a progressive Democrat, so that's not really an issue, but were you kind of shocked by the pushback from, I don't know if I call it the progressive community, but certainly some elements of it?
I think it opened up a very important discussion for the city, one on sort of what leadership represents in our city today. And my decision was very much based on the job functions of the council presidency and the ideas that every person had for the role, and the conversations I had with colleagues who were not seeking the presidency as well. And
were there any?
There were, yeah. There were many people who were interested in. It's a term limited position as well, so there are some people who are counted out. But after that, looking at it very practically and from the perspective of what does a council president do, how will the council best function, how can I start to build relationships and really make sure that conversations are continuing between all my colleagues and myself, that was a decision that I had made. And I completely understand. There were many people who were very surprised, many people who were hurt by my decision. And I think what it said to me is that we still have a lot of progress to achieve in our city when it comes to everybody feeling fully welcome and fully inclusive in Boston. That is why I am in politics, to try to make sure that barriers are taken down, whether red tape in government or cultural or societal, making sure that every person feels like they have a shot at the American dream. They have a shot at opportunity for their family and for themselves, and we still have a way to go there. But I do believe that some great work will come out of the council this year, and people will be very pleased at how much we will have been able to accomplish.
How is it shaped? You know, there's a whole host of experiences I'm sure that you're bringing to bear, not the least of which is your family growing up, et cetera, how you approach this. But how has it shaped how you're looking at your tenure now in the council? I mean, has it changed you at all?
The experience leading up to joining? You know, my priorities remain the same. I think what I learned is that it is very important to think and plan for communication. Right? So I think part of it was that I didn't have the chance to really communicate my thoughts to many of my supporters, and many folks learned about it through the media. And you know, things do slip out. Information will get out before you're ready for it, and that was a big lesson.
That's what we do.
Exactly.
I'm only sorry I missed this story, and I'm kidding, of course.
So I do think that you know, I've tried to, in some ways, make up for that by having as many conversations one-on-one as possible, meeting with any group that wants to discuss my decision, and then talking about how I can move forward and how I can support the priorities that residents have moving forward, and working together in that way.
Has that assuaged some of them? I mean, and I don't, you know, I want to talk to you about other things as well, but I really do want to, I was kind of curious about that. I was, you know, a little taken aback by it myself, that it was so kind of, you know, some of the denunciation so vehement almost, you know. I said, are they talking about the same young lady that I talked to that, you know, feels so passionately about various progressive causes?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of emotion wrapped up in politics, and because it's about advocating for issues that are near and dear to the well-being of yourself, your family, things that are absolutely crucial. And so I really do welcome that level of feedback and engagement. I've tried to go to every single meeting where I've been invited to speak about it and really explain and then listen. In many ways, I think it's been helpful to have started conversations with people, and there are folks who reached out very, very upset with my decision. I listened and I did my best to explain, said please contact me for any issue moving forward. I do want to be helpful, and will prove to you that I am still the same person that I was. And the good news is that now that connection has been established, now that communication has been opened, people have come back for a second and third conversation about different issues. So in some way, you know, the silver lining for me is that it has opened up communication with a lot of folks.
Well, you know, once burned, twice learned, and the flip side of that is it make you more reticent to, well, talk to the media. I hope not to this media person, but to, you know, take a chance. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to know who's going to be the best leader, or, you know, those kinds of decisions. You know, sometimes it's very difficult to decide. Does that change how you act going forward? How you?
I think I will continue to make decisions in the same way, which is to really dig into the facts and the practical implications and what this means for residents, while also thinking very carefully about the symbolism of every action and how that affects people's perception of how welcome they feel in Boston and how included they feel in Boston. In terms of the media, I think, you know,
it's always best to keep them at bay.
I've now been through, you know,
Your
a little bit of
fire.
a mini storm, and you know, I think it's just about working hard and communicating as much as possible. So I have learned that there's no downside to speaking the truth and being forthright, and much of the confusion is often in that gray space where some information comes out and you're silent. And I think people want to know that you have, once they hear that you've taken the time to really think it through and hear your criteria for every decision, whether they agree with you or not, at the end of the day, they, I hope, respect the fact that you have taken the time to make a strong decision and to explain that.
And how about amongst your colleagues? Of course, not all of the opponents of Councilor Linehan or the other candidates, I don't know if I'd call them opponents, but the other were candidates of color, but the main one that emerged was Ayanna Pressley as a person of color. Do you think there was some kind of expectation that you necessarily should have voted that way? Did you feel there's, I don't know, a cultural, racial kind of conflict there?
Well, Councilor Presley and I have known each other for a number of years, and so it was extremely, extremely difficult for me when she announced that she was interested in the position later on. And at that point, I felt that I had made a commitment, had given my word, and needed to honor it.
And not owing to the fact that you're both women of color.
Yeah, you know, as someone who is very conscious of the fact that when I was younger, I didn't see very many women of color in positions of political leadership, much less leadership in general. That is certainly something that I think about in terms of the younger generation and the possibilities they imagine for themselves. So it was a very tough decision. I trust that we will have many opportunities to work together, and the council in the weeks since then has really put together, even in just the three, 4 weeks meetings that we've had since that vote, a very progressive slate of items that we're considering. And I believe that every week new items are added to that, so it'll be a very fruitful term this term.
Regardless, again, Michelle Wu is a first-term at-large city councilor, just inches from the top of the field there, finishing second overall, if I recall correctly, and here tonight on Talk to the Neighborhoods, sharing her experiences, her first weeks, and well, now starting towards months. Okay, now, how is Mayor Walsh doing?
He seems to be doing great.
Is he responding to you? Do you have any trouble getting through to him?
I see him everywhere at community events, especially these days in Chinatown, because we're still in the midst of the Lunar New Year celebrations, right. And so it's been great to run into him often there and in other neighborhoods in the city. I did have the chance to sit down with him as well, and have been very grateful that he's been extremely responsive and supportive of initiatives that the council's been putting forward.
And what about the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade? Will you be marching in it?
I will not. I mean, the situation is still fluid and evolving, and there have been many conversations that have been reported in the media and additional ones behind the scenes. I won't be marching in the parade until it's a fully inclusive parade of every group that wants to march and represent part of the city and the neighborhood. So it remains to be seen what the situation is this year, but I won't be marching until it's fully inclusive.
You could be, though. You got your sneakers ready just in case. I'm just kidding, of course. All right. Now, when you ran for office, I remember you were talking about, and it wasn't on people's radar screen at that time, certainly. All these what some people thought were arcane issues, business permit. And are you making any progress on that? What of business permitting and what? No, I'm teasing a little bit, but is that still amongst your priorities? What are you focused on for your council term?
Yes, I'm glad that stuck out to you, because I remember all of those meet and greets and events that I did, and when I sometimes would lose track of time when I was talking about permitting, because I'm so interested in addressing the topic, and I would see people's eyes start to glaze over. It's not the most interesting subject for everyone else, apparently, but it is so important. And for every neighborhood, having small businesses that are active, that are welcoming, that hire locally, that keep money in the neighborhood is critical to the neighborhood's well-being and to the sense of community that we feel. So I really believe that as a city can support small business owners, it is supporting the overall economic growth of everyone. The issue is that in a city as historic as Boston, many of our permitting systems, our regulations date back to those early days when Union Oyster House was first opened. And so I've filed my first pieces of legislation or legislative items, and that included a major look at overhauling our legal permitting system. So to try to get rid of some of these licenses if necessary and consolidate others. We still have a license to break and can eggs on the books, and licenses for fortune telling and for serving milk or cream, many things that could be encapsulated in a standard restaurant food permit, and other things that itinerant musicians permits that may be to do for some overhaul or further explanation. This week I'll be filing another half of that hearing order to look at our internal processes and how we look at applications and how we can support business owners once they've entered the process. So hopefully by tackling the legal side as well as the process side, we can really make a difference for small business.
Well, and what else are you focused on for your first term? What will you, at the end of your first term, what will make you consider it a success?
So I'm chairing two committees. The first is a new one on, it's a special committee on small business, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So that will tackle many of those issues. The second committee I'm chairing is the Committee on Arts and Culture. And I really want to look at the intersection of these two areas. So how do we think about the innovation economy, the creative economy, as it relates back to neighborhoods and neighborhood businesses? If we can retain all of the talent that's here in Boston, all the culture, all the diversity, and give it room to grow, showcase it, highlight it, support it through our business structures, through our cultural festivals, then Boston will be a place where anybody that has an idea will have an easier time making it happen, and everybody feels welcome. So I hope at the end of my first term that we have made significant strides in helping businesses open, that many neighborhoods see brighter and more active cultural events, that the new energy around tech and startups and pushing towards a creative and innovation economy has been fully supported. And most of all, that my office has been as responsive as possible and accessible as possible when it comes to constituent services. Because at the end of the day, it's still about quality of life and about giving residents a place where they can pick up the phone or find me at a meeting or find my staff at a meeting and say, I'm having this issue, can you help think about how to solve it?
Well, lots of times that goes, as you know, those calls go to district counselors. Are you changing the mold or the model for an at-large city councilor? I'm not suggesting that at-large councilors aren't available, but they're pulled all over the city, and sometimes it's hard to focus on any particular area.
Yeah, it's a lot of ground to cover, that's for sure. And our district counselors are doing a great job of really being in the community at events, and their offices cover an incredible amount of ground in the districts. I want to support that work, and there are always residents that may not know who to call or where to turn. I was one of those residents when I was first started raising my sisters and taking care of my mom and opening a business. Whomever can find that person and ask them how to help, whether it's a district counselor, an at-large counselor, someone from the mayor's office. Our job in government, especially in city government, is to be that place where people can turn and where everyone can turn. And I want to help take government out into the community and identify those places where we can really make a difference.
Well, of course, you made some history. You're the first Asian American woman elected citywide, elected to a council position. Has that brought some, I don't know if I'd say additional responsibility, but some expectations, some sense of responsibility on your part that others might not feel? And just wondering how much that plays into it.
It's absolutely been a
I mean, I know
whirlwind.
you're very proud of that, and you should be. But I'm just wondering what that, what comes with that?
It's been a whirlwind to be elected and to hit the ground running. There's a lot of need across the city, and I try to take the time to sometimes take a step back and say, how are we doing the constituent services as well as we can do them, attending the community events as many as we can go to, and then thinking about the larger picture as well of setting the stage for the next generation. Right? So this jade necklace is from my grandparents. They gave it to me the day I was born as a tradition in Chinese culture. And I think about the fact that I have been wearing this for years and years. And when I first started wearing it, never thought about politics, never imagined that I would be involved in government at all, much less running for office and going out and doing speeches in front of everyone and shaking hands and meeting people. And I think a large part, as I mentioned before, was about role models and thinking about what was possible. When I was younger, the most visible Asian American woman was Michelle Kwan, and so many folks would say to me, "You should become a figure skater when you grow up." And that's the power. It's the power of symbolism and imagination. So I hope that my being out and about in the community is a signal and a symbol to the younger generation that anything is possible if you don't have a background in politics. If you
doesn't mean you can't.
Exactly.
And never get jaded, right? Literally and figuratively. Well, you know, I think you have a great future, and just I've been talking with candidates and politicians for a long time. And so don't stop what you're doing. Just keep moving forward. Sometimes that's tough. It's a tough business, no doubt. Some sharp elbows along the way. You're getting it down. I want to thank you so much for coming in. Of course, it's an interesting way to start, but there might be a purpose behind that. And do you ever think? Dare you think even about someday going higher?
It's been a lot to process and digest as it is. And I think what I'm working on now is really figuring out how to be there for every neighborhood. As you said, it's a lot of ground to cover as an at-large counselor, and I really want to do the job in a way that I'm thinking about the whole city and thinking about what policy interests are at stake, but still being there for the neighborhoods too. And it's incredibly rewarding at the end of every day. Today, for example, I visited a school and was at the Mary Lyons School out in Brighton, and just looking in classrooms and speaking to the principal and understanding what is happening in our neighborhoods. We were at a hearing earlier for trash pickup in the downtown neighborhoods and how that affects quality of life. And then ran to a Chinatown banquet before coming here. So there's so much going on all across the city. It's an incredible honor.
You will get some rest someday, but not tonight. Michelle, thanks for coming in. Again, Michelle Wu, at-large Boston City Councilor, and my candidate for Profile and Courage, you take your pick. But nice enough to come by and join us tonight. Unfortunately, we're out of time. You're watching Talking the Neighborhoods. We're here tonight and every Monday night at the same time. Next week, joining us, the new host of the South Boston St. Patrick's Day Breakfast. I'm talking, of course, about State Senator Linda Dorsina Forey. We hope you'll join us for that show. Until then, for Michelle Wu, for Governor's candidate Donald Berwick, my earlier guest, thank you for watching.